Hi everyone, my name is Anna Sachno, and in this tutorial I'll teach you how to crochet a raffia boat hat. You'll need one skein of raffia, 250 meters long. Mine is from Woolen Mania. Their skein has exactly 250 meters. If you're using a different brand, you might need more than one skein. I've used 3.5mm hook and 1 meter of Rigeline to strengthen the hat. The Rigeline is 3mm thick, but you may use a 2mm as well. And let me explain why you need it in the first place. I used it for the last row of the brim. If you don't have Rigeline, the brim of the hat might become wavy under its weight. Although the waves also look nice, they do not go with the boat hat model. That's why if you want to make a boat hat, a hat that would have a well-defined form and keep its shape, I would recommend using Rigeline. Please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell icon to get notified about my new free tutorials. Please visit and take a look. The raffia is available in several shades, so you can make several different hats. First, let's make a circle. It will be an ordinary circle based on a standard pattern. Wrap the raffia around your hand to get 2 threads together. Slip the hook under one of the threads, and now you've got a loop on the hook. Crochet it as a chain stitch. Slip the hook under both threads and pull another loop out. Crochet 2 loops together. It's called single crochet. Slip the hook once again, pull the raffia out, crochet 2 loops together. As a result, you should get these braids. All in all, you should have 6 of them. I've already got 2, now making the third one. As soon as you've made 6 of them, pull this tail of raffia and join the single crochets into a circle. You can spread the crochets with your hand to make a circle. Move the tail, we'll hide it later. Tighten up. We could join the row right now in a standard way, but I want to avoid having a seam because it will draw attention. That's why we're going to crochet in spiral order, and we're about to start the second row right now. This is a tick pattern, that's why I'm making the first single crochet out of the center of V tick. Be careful, the second row is the most difficult one, because these crochets are very tight and you don't always see where to insert the hook. If you've attempted the tick pattern before, you'll certainly succeed. If not, I'm going to explain now. It's difficult to see on the first crochet, but it will become more visible in the next ones. Go on making single crochets in this row, but instead of 1, we need to make 2 single crochets out of each stitch. I've made 2 single crochets in one stitch and now marking this place with a stitch marker because I don't have a seam to guide us and I don't want to get lost, and I always have to know where one row ends and another one starts. Like I said, in the second row we're making 2 single crochets out of each stitch. While making the second stitch, I'm going to show you where to insert the hook. You may notice that these single crochets resemble V-ticks, V-shaped ticks. I'm showing you one of them right now. To create tick pattern, you need to insert the hook right in the middle of a tick, not just under both loops, and not just between the ticks, but right in the middle. I hope you may see it here, though it's rather small. That's how it looks from the back. The raffia is on either side of the hook, and the hook is in the middle of the tick. Once we've inserted it in the middle, pull the thread and crochet 2 loops on the hook together. So you need to make 2 single crochets out of each tick, like that, out of each stitch. Find the next tick, here it is, insert the hook into the middle. Go on like that until the end of the second row. I've reached the marker and now I'm taking it out so that it doesn't obstruct. The marker was here, which means that this is the first stitch of the second row, and it also means that we're starting to make the first stitch of the third row now. In this one, we're going to alternate 1 single stitch with 1 doubled, as per standard circle pattern. First stitch is single, insert the hook into the center of this second stitch. It will be doubled, which means 2 single crochets out of 1 stitch. Keep alternating single and doubled stitches until the end of the third row. 1 single, then 1 doubled. And I want to share a small secret with you. Sometimes those who crochet using raffia complain having too large holes in the work. But you should know that having holes is normal. I also have them, see? Especially when I take my hand away. But they don't have to be too large. If you think they are, I can give you a small tip. Take a look. When you insert the hook and pull the loops out, I suggest stretching out the second loop really well up to the level of the hook. As you may see, it's rather long. If you do that, you won't have to tighten up the whole work. The ticks will be clearly visible. The pattern will be visible. But when you crochet 2 loops together, on the contrary, avoid pulling and stretching the loop on the hook. Make it as tight as possible. It must wrap around the hook, like that. Let me show you once again. Insert the hook into the next stitch. Pull the loop out to the hook level. Crochet 2 loops together and keep them tight. Do not stretch this loop. This way the holes will be smaller. At the same time, the pattern as a whole won't look over-tightened. The third row is ready. There's a way to check yourself whether you're doing everything correctly. Every new row, the number of stitches would increase by 6. The first row consisted of 6 stitches. The second row should have 12 stitches, third 18 stitches, and so on. In next rows we are going to add a single stitch between doubled stitches. So in the fourth row you need to alternate 1 doubled stitch with 2 single. In the fifth row, 1 doubled stitch and 3 single stitches. That's how we're going to crochet until the end of the fifth row. All in all, 9 rows will be based on this principle of adding a single stitch between doubled stitches. The 10th row will consist of single stitches only, but I'll show that later. I want to share a life hack with you. I'm in the end of the 5th row now, and you might have noticed that the first stitch of the row is always doubled, which means we make 2 single crochets out of it. As a result, increases are always on top of increases, which in turn leaves us with a polygon instead of a circle. Even now, having made 5 rows, you notice the wedges are shaping up. And instead of making a proper circle, we're making a proper polygon. It might be acceptable if you were making a bag. These wedges might look interesting, though the bag would not be round. But it's definitely not acceptable for a hat, because it has to be round, no doubt about that. That's why we're going to shift our increases. How? Let me show you. I'm supposed to make one single crochet out of the last stitch of the 5th row, because according to the pattern there should be 3 single stitches in a row, but instead of making it single, meaning one single crochet, I am doubling it, making 2 single crochets, like that. And this is the beginning of the 6th row. So its beginning is shifted by 1 stitch. Let's attach the marker. So increases have shifted to the right, and we won't have these wedges anymore. The polygon shape will gradually disappear with every new row. The rest of the pattern is absolutely the same. We've just made a doubled stitch, which means it should be followed by 4 single stitches, then 1 doubled again, then 4 single. We'll repeat this trick with shifting increases in each row with doubled stitches in it. I'm currently finishing the 6th row. It ends with a series of 4 single stitches again, and it means we have to double the marked stitch, which will result in increases on top of each other. But we don't want that. That's why we'll reduce the number of single stitches and we'll double one of them. Like that. So in the 7th row, we start a bit earlier. Let's mark it. Go on crocheting the 7th row based on the same pattern. Alternate 5 single stitches with 1 doubled. I've made 9 rows and I'm about to start the 10th one. This row is different because if we add increases here, the waves will appear and the circle will no longer be flat, it will be wavy. That's why the 10th row should consist of single stitches only, from beginning to end, no doubled stitches. Just 1 single crochet out of each stitch. Do not double anything. Once the 10th row is ready, start making the 11th as if the 10th was never there, which means there were 7 single stitches between the doubled ones in the 9th row, and in the 11th row you should make 8 single stitches. All in all, make 16 rows like that. And now it's time to make the walls of our hat. Boater hat suggests a clear border between brim and walls. 90 degrees angle. And to make the walls at right angle, to turn them 90 degrees against the circle, we'll need to grasp the thread in a particular manner. But before moving on to the walls, we should finalize the circle, polish it look. Cut the raffia, pull out the thread, and make a final stitch that would imitate all other braids. Insert the hook front to back, right in the center of the tick. Draw the raffia to the front, then slip the hook under both loops from back side. Hook up the raffia and draw it to the back side. You may use your hand to stretch it out. Of course, it doesn't completely conceal the end of the circle. You won't even notice that later. It will become invisible. The remaining thread has to be weaved in between crochets as usual. For that, insert the hook into several stitches on the back. And pull the thread through them. Like that. Repeat several times, hide the thread and cut it. The circle is complete now and we are ready to move on to the walls. To start a new row, I advise you to shift a little, either to the right or left, it doesn't matter, but you should not start right where you finished, because if you do, you'll emphasize this spot where the last row ends. I'm moving a bit to the left, and I want to show you how we're going to insert the hook to create the walls perpendicularly. This is a back loop. Behind it, there's a loop that is in parallel to it. That's the loop we need. Let me show you. So here it is. You need to slip the hook beneath these loops to shape the walls at right angle. Let's begin a new row, insert the hook and draw the raffia out. Make a standard chain stitch. Then insert the hook into the next similar loop that is in parallel to the back loop. Draw the raffia. Make a single crochet. Find the next loop, insert the hook, draw the raffia out, make a single crochet. Make the rest of the walls following the same principle. No increases are needed here. And to achieve the right angle, the number of stitches in the walls shall correspond to the number of stitches in the circle. 96 stitches in total. Crochet until you are satisfied with the height of the walls. Crocheting in spiral rounds helps to avoid making connecting seams. And here you will no longer need the stitch marker. This thread will mark the beginning of the row. It will stuck out and guide you. I've crocheted 8 centimeters and 15 rows. You might have a different number of rows, it depends on how tightly you're crocheting. But my 8 centimeters of walls are here and I'm ready to move on to the brim. We continue crocheting in spiral order here. Rows don't have to be joined. But how do you figure out you've reached the end of a row? Well, this raffia thread that was there from the beginning of the walls, here it is. It indicates the end of a row and the beginning of a new one. Thus, I'm sure I've made 15 complete rows. Now let's start with the brim. We'll crochet it by turning 90 degrees. It should lengthen in this direction towards the camera. To achieve that, we need to insert the hook into a crochet like that. Hook up the raffia, make a single crochet. Once again, I am slipping the hook under the crochet, the so-called V-tick, from right to left, hooking up the raffia and making an ordinary single crochet. At the moment we're not creating the tick pattern, this is more like a connecting row, which will allow us to create the brim at right angle. But starting from the second row, we'll get back to the tick pattern when we insert the hook in the middle of a tick. This way the brim will have the same pattern, but a different angle. That's it. While making the brim, you'll have to make increases again to ensure it gets wider and it is in parallel with the top circle. These increases should start from based on how we ended making them on the circle. In the last row of the circle, I doubled a stitch after 14 single stitches. That's why in the first row of the brim, we need to make 15 single stitches, then 1 double stitch. It looks like we are continuing crocheting the circle just on a lower level, below the walls. Right now we're making 15 single stitches and then 1 doubled. which means 2 single crochets out of 1 stitch. 15 crochets are ready. Now we're doubling the next one. Insert the hook the same way, make a single crochet, and then insert the hook again, hook up the same loop and make another single crochet. That's an increase. Go on like that until the end of the row. Alternate 15 single stitches with 1 doubled. I think at this point it's clear how to crochet the brim. It's like you are still making the circle. The principle is absolutely the same. Add 1 more single stitch between doubled ones. Carry on until you've reached an optimal length. Wider brim holds its shape worse, which means it will become wavy when you take it on. But if you can imagine what I'm talking about, it also looks nice. When the brim is too large, the waves cover your face, but it's kind of beautiful too. So choose what you prefer best. A perfect option for you. But this is a boat or hat tutorial, and that's why the brim will not be too large. I've made 11 rows. I think a total of 12 rows will be enough for the brim. And now I need to make the last row, and for this I'm going to use a Ridgeline. Here it is. Mine is 3 mm thick. A thinner one will do as well. Leave a small tail for later. It should be beneath the hat. Step a couple of centimeters aside and start crocheting around it. It's very easy. Simply insert the hook into a stitch. The Ridgeline is right here on top of the row, and make a single crochet. Insert the hook again, make another single crochet. Ridgeline is always on top of the row. So in the end, Ridgeline will be inside your last row. Try to crochet tightly. Single crochets should grasp Ridgeline firmly. The last row might seem thicker, but it's understandable. There is a 3 mm cord inside it. In the last row, I'm alternating 25 single stitches with 1 doubled. I've almost reached the end. Here's the tail that we've left. I need to cut Ridgeline toe to toe. It should not overlap. You may use scissors or cutters. It doesn't matter. I've used about 1 meter of Ridgeline, but a bit less than a meter. Cut it toe to toe, and now let's simply wrap the joint with transparent tape so that the edges do not come out. The hat might crackle a bit in this place, but it doesn't really bother me. This angle will smooth out as we crochet around it, and we are very close to an end. This is the spot where we added Ridgeline. Here is the first stitch, and this is the last stitch. The Ridgeline is completely hidden. There's a small Raffia tail left, which I'm going to weave in. To do that, I'm slipping the hook under the front loop of the first stitch, pulling the tail through. Let's turn the work around. There's a back loop of the last stitch and another loop that is in parallel with it. Here it is. Let's insert the hook and grasp the tail. Pull it through to the back, like that. we've pulled the tail from back to front. This is the front, and the place of joining is almost impossible to notice now. The last thing we need to do is to weave the tail on the back. It's good if you have at least 4 centimeters. The head is done. Weave all the tails in, and let's see the result. We've added Rageline to the last row to avoid waves that might form on the brim. Boater hat should have a well-defined shape with a smooth and even brim. And though the waves can be beautiful, we don't want that in this model. We don't want it to be wavy. That's why we've added Rageline to maintain clear lines of the brim of our hat. Please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell icon to get notified about my new free tutorials. Raffia and 3mm Rageline are available in lentamania.ru online store. Please visit and take a look. The Raffia is available in several shades, so you can make several different hats. This is the hat that we've made. I've already attached a corded silk ribbon. It's often used for boater hats like that. You can add one as well. Good luck with your crocheting. Boater hats are very stylish and you'll definitely have a chance to wear one this year. Have a good day and bye-bye!